Hey everyone, we are Harlan and Naya. Welcome to episode 14 of our pop culture series, Riding the Wake. If you're enjoying our content, please like and subscribe. Today's show is called Weirdly Offensive Strange Science. We will be discussing the movies Weird Science, Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. I know there are 2 decades separating those two movies, but we don't care, and the television show, the streaming show, Chapter 4 of the Netflix series Stranger Things, which we only have seen the first half of because that's all they've dropped so far, but I think there's plenty to talk about today. But before we get into that, we're going to let you know what's happening in the SoCal area. So, Naya, what is going on?
Well, Harlan, for our exquisite traveling OC paddling, fans, we have some races coming up. We got June 18th, the Kahakai Outrigger Challenge that's going to go on at Long Beach. So it's this Saturday. And we have the June 25th Outrigger Iron Championships, which is going on in our own backyard in San Diego, and it's happening at Mariners Point in Mission Bay. So for more information, you can go to www.scora.org/races/. So that's all we have because Outrigger season is coming to a close, and then we're going to go into 9-man season. So get out there and watch these races when you can.
Yeah, and go support our sponsors. So at the races, there's always fun stuff to buy out there. If you need a paddle, if you need some clothes, I got a wonderful shirt that I'm not wearing right now from one of our San Diego vendors. So there's some cool stuff out there. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
enjoy.
So, yes, enjoy indeed, as we're going to enjoy this podcast right now. So, I was thinking, Harlan, you're a tech guy. You love technology. You know more about the ins and outs of computers and robotics and IA and all this stuff. So, um, I was wondering now, do you ever think that there will be a time and not probably not in our lifetime, but somewhere down the line that science will create an AI that, for all intent purposes, to be as close to human as possible? Now, I'm not talking about Sophia, the robot that we've seen on the news, who's done news interviews and stuff like that. But I'm talking about like the skin, blood, the ability to do everything humanly possible, the whole shebang. And I'll tell you the reason why after you give me your answer.
So my answer to that is, why on earth would they bother? Like, if you were like, maybe it's within the realm of possibility, but the question is, like, why, right? So the human body is not very well designed. my knees my knees are my back, oh, my back, my knees, my eyes, like, look at these things. Like, come on, the human body is not very well designed. Like, they could do better, I guess, is my point. So I guess the question is, would they use it for infiltration purposes? Maybe. Would they use it to make us feel a little bit more comfortable with them, so that we would not be as jerky about denying them rights the way we've denied rights to minorities or non-dominant groups for, like, as long as humanity has been around? Well, actually, that's not necessarily true. So as long as state governments have been around, it's really been a tool for, like, denying people rights. So I suppose there might be a motive to do something like that, but I question whether they would bother to even create too much in the way of sort of like an interactive mammalian style body.
Mm.
Does that make sense? I don't know. Do you agree?
Yeah, yeah. So like I'm torn because like I can see the flip side of, if they got, if we created IA with
AI.
all this. Oh, sorry,
That's all right.
AI. It, it's going downhill fast,
It's going
people.
downhill fast, people.
um, but I mean, I could see them, if they got the knowledge and the intelligence that these creations would want to be treated as human. They would want rights. They would want rights to marry. They would want rights to drive a car. All this stuff that we take for granted. But on the other side, why would we use them? Probably for the military, probably for policing, probably for
Oh,
as we
so
get up.
my thoughts on this. Yeah, my thoughts on this are
Yeah,
a little bit more like of when this could be happening. That's an interesting take though. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That
So like we wouldn't have to do the backbreaking work. But then, it would be this like kind of, chaotic kind of theme. Like I could see it going there. Now, the reason why I pose this question
hmm.
is because I requested of you to watch one of my favorite movies growing up, Weird Science, that was done in like 1985, 86, with a young Robert Downey Jr. and a very young Anthony Michael Hall and Bill Paxton and the lovely, lovely Kelly LeBrock. So I want to know your take on one of my favorite movies that brought me comfort when I was growing up.
Okay. Yeah, so as I started watching this thing, I was like I was actually hoping for an enjoyable time. Uh, when I was growing up, I for whatever reason, I didn't have access to Weird Science. Everyone I've talked to has been like, "How could you not have seen Weird Science? It was all over cable." Well, I didn't have cable until like I was my mom didn't get cable until I was in college. So, I was in college and then by that point, like Weird Science wasn't on the rotation anymore. Um and I never bothered renting it for whatever reason. It was probably always out. I I don't know why I never saw it. I think I remember seeing pieces, like little tiny pieces and going, "Oh, at some point I'll catch that from the beginning, but I don't want to watch like just the last 15 minutes or whatever." So, yeah, never saw it, but I have I I remember thinking this should be good. It should be funny. It's got some things in it I like. But as I was watching it, all I could think was, oh my God, this is another terrifying white male horror show. It's just like none of the jokes landed for me. Everything seemed off. The one thing that seemed accurate was Kelly LeBrock's AI character. Um, she was trained in very much the way that we see the algorithms on places like Google's algorithms and Facebook's algorithms. That she was trained like that. They did it in a very simplistic fashion. They just fed like images in. They like fed a picture of Einstein in, and they're like, "Well, that should just deliver you all of Einstein's knowledge, right?" And they fed in like philosophers and like schematics for things. Like I don't know, maybe there was like nuclear power instructions. I don't know, but they're just like feeding it into a document scanner, right? Not that they
Yeah.
even had document scanners back then. So it's like, okay. But basically it's like, oh, take all this random information and make a personality out of it and everything's going to go okay. I mean that part of it was oracular. They definitely did predict some of the problems that we're encountering right now, but I wouldn't say that it ever struck me as funny. I was always like, wow, this is just stupid. And I'm not really sure why they're doing this. Like, am I supposed to identify with these dudes? Because a hardcore nerd. I was a hardcore nerd. Like, I was that guy who got to school in junior high and sat there and pissed off the teachers because I would sit there for an hour reading my book, and they're like, "You can't just do that." And I'm like, "What? I'm just sitting outside the classroom reading a book." No, you can't. I'm like, obviously they're like, "No, you're too nerdy for you. You're not allowed to do that." And so, and then there were these just horrible gags in it. Like, in the movie, they take Icy, like Robert Downey Jr. and whoever the other guy was.
Yeah.
They were sort of the bully, the cool bullies, right? The
Yeah.
cool male bullies, and they pour ices on top of the heads of our two main characters, the dudes, and it triggers the director to tell all of the other actors, just laugh at them as hard as you can, laugh and point and make fun of them, which is like, okay, like, as much as I know that people laugh and point at me behind my back, they very rarely do it in person, and almost never as a child did I feel that coming from fully grown adults, right?
Mm.
And even if you're in a situation where there are horrible, awful people who are willing to do
Yeah.
so, like in the middle of the mall, right? Almost always there's someone who's like, "Hey, like, that's not cool."
Yeah.
I like to think that I would be that person, right? I like to think that there are a lot of people like that. And like, it just, like, there were so many things in this movie that made me go, wow, what does, who did this film again? Who was the director?
Think of John Hughes, I think.
Was it John Hughes again? So what is his obsession with house parties?
Maybe he didn't have any when he was a kid.
Because it seems like he's never been to one. I, yeah, John Hughes.
I
It was
believe
John
so.
Hughes. I wrote down his name here because I'm like, and what does he think about children? Like, I don't think he's ever spoken to an actual child. Maybe he has
Well,
children. I
like
don't
you
know.
said,
Go.
like you said, if you're so nobody's gonna pour an icy on you from the second floor of the mall. I mean, like you can't do that. I mean, the only ices that I know you have to go get at 7-Eleven. Are you gonna like really go to the mall with your icy? Like I don't think so. Not in this
Well,
day and age.
you could pour like a what do you call it? Don't they have those,
I don't know.
the orange Julius? Orange Julius. You
Are
could
those still
totally pour an
around?
orange Julius on some. Are they? It's been a long time since I've been to a mall. Are all the malls closed now? I don't even know. It's just
we're,
Amazon.
we're yeah. We're dating ourselves.
We're totally dating ourselves. And then
But
some of,
yeah,
like, I have a whole list of things in here that were just awful. Like the gun violence. In a way,
oh,
the gun violence was actually quite startling to me, especially as, all the shootings that have happened recently. Because this was filmed in the 80s, back before there were a lot of mass shootings, and back when gun violence was a lot lower, just statistically, in the United States. But the fact that Bill Paxton is just casually pointing a gun, not only at his own family member, but at a random woman that was in the bed with him, I was just like, wow, this is a little bit too real. And like, it's couched as funny in the film. And I'm like, wow. Cause
I
I,
totally
I
forgot.
know, I know this happens. I know there are people, family members who will go into other people's rooms and threaten them with guns. Like, that's like a real thing that actually happens. And it's made fun of in a way that I didn't like.
I totally forgot about the gun scenes. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but Bill Paxton's character was supposed to be this like macho military no nonsense guy. I totally forgot that he was an asshole in this film. He was a total asshole in this film.
Yeah. He was an awful bully. And very realistic. but not in a way that maybe John Hughes even was conscious of.
Yeah.
It's almost as if Bill Paxton's character came to life later, or maybe existed beforehand and John Hughes like knew people like this. I don't know. um I mean, there's always been assholes
Yeah.
like this, right? There's always been assholes like
Yeah.
this. Maybe John
Maybe
Hughes
we
actually
so
like got it right. I would say that this film hit me more as a meta commentary on the way society was heading than as a comedy, a meta commentary rather than a meta comedy. I know
yeah.
that's, and so as I was watching, I'm like, wow, the just the pure amount of antipathy toward women, the belittling of their choices, the fact that the AI is a woman who's basically they think she's there to take care of them, and essentially she says so. She's like, I'll do anything you want. But as me looking at it, I'm like, that's an AI. If she's a fully functional AI, she's kind of making her own choices. And there was nothing in their programming that said, hey, you're like supposed to be shackled in any way. So I feel like she was manipulating them 100% the entire time just for fun, just to fuck with them, just to fuck with everybody. And like, so there was some potentially deep stuff happening in this
Mm.
movie, but it it didn't land for me. Like none of it really landed, and I was like, oh, it's such a, I don't know.
No, but like it you so I I remember being funny and well, of course I was younger then.
Hmm.
But when I first saw the movie, I'm just like, okay, it's two nerds trying to be cool, trying to get into the A crowd, and then accepting the fact that they're never going to be in the A crowd, but with the help of an outsider that they created, they got the confidence to be themselves and be okay, and they got the girls at the end. You saw it a different way. You saw it as an adult, and now looking back, I'm just like, oh wow, yeah, that's there's a lot of deep stuff in there. Like seriously, like I
Yeah,
mean,
there's
I've
a lot of
never
disturbing stuff in there. It's almost a horror movie. And in fact, a lot of the stuff I watch these days, especially when I go back, I feel like, wow, this is more horror than it is whatever they intended.
yeah, yeah. But you know what? It's okay that you didn't like it, and it's okay that you had a different experience because that's what this podcast is all about in paddling. You know, everything. It's having these different experiences. But the bottom line for me was it's okay for people to be different and accept that. So, coming out of the AI and everything else, let's talk about another movie that I hope that we both liked. Uh, Doctor Strange.
And the
I
multiverse of madness.
I freaking loved this movie. I love this movie because I think Doctor Strange, out of the whole, superhero people, I believe that I relate to him a lot more because he's
Really?
like, it's like I don't care. He's like, I have that I don't care attitude. Like, he's like, damn it, I have to go save somebody now. Shit. All right, let's let's. I don't really want to do it, but I have to because that's part of the deal. And he's okay with that. But yeah, I love Doctor Strange. I love it, and I love Benedict. I can't lie. I love Benedict.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, he does. But he uses his American accent in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of
Yeah.
Madness, right? He doesn't use his British accent. It's
No, I
too
don't care
bad.
what he does. I
That's
don't
too
care what he
bad.
does.
I would have preferred the Sherlock accent. So what did you think of Scarlet Witch and the whole arc for Scarlet Witch? And it's actually interesting that we are putting Weird Science and Multiverse of Madness together, because you basically, in both of them, you have a woman who has control over a woman who's not a woman. She's like superhuman, right? So she's outside of the realm of reality, and she
Yeah,
has control literally over existence. She has control over the experience of the universe around her, right? And can
yeah,
essentially do whatever she wants. And like, well,
yeah.
did you? It's hard to identify with a character like that for me, but I really liked the Scarlet Witch character. I don't know how you felt about it.
I I for me, it was just I looked at her and I'm like, dude, I feel so sorry for you because you were so filled with so much anger and so much hate that I can't relate to that character.
Hmm.
I can't. I as as yeah, she has cool superhuman power that she can just, you know, telepathically be anywhere that she wants. But I just didn't like it because it showed that she had a really close-minded world that she would rather live in than live in reality and try to get through reality. She almost kind of seemed like to me like, and I don't say this lightly, uh manic depressives or anybody that we've been in our world, like reality, this world that we
Sure,
live in,
sure.
who has depression. It seemed like that, and you were an outsider looking in, and like you really wanted to get close and really wanted to help her, but you didn't know what was going to come.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was like, okay, I gotta stay back. So I mean that was my take on her. Like I said, I was more um I was more attached and more drawn to Strange's character and his personality and everything else than Scarlet's.
I had a similar feeling to you. There's that idea I think that people have, especially folks who want to go into the medical field or something, or psychiatric care, and you're like,
Mm,
oh well, we should be able to fix people, right? And I think this movie did a good job of bringing to light that sort of uh, the difficulty of having that kind of urge, and the need to basically do what Doctor Strange did, where y- there's only so far you can go, and
mhm,
you can't. He was essentially trying to deal with the struggle that I think a lot of mental health care providers are trying to deal with. You've got someone who's trying to harm themselves, indirectly trying to harm others, maybe directly trying to harm others, and you've got to try to reduce the harm as much as possible and like deal with all those ethical issues.
yeah,
It was really good. I really
yeah,
like the film. Like I felt like I feel like these Marvel films are starting to really come into their own, and it was something I always wanted for superhero films to do, to get out of the we're establishing a new character this movie kind of thing,
yeah,
where it's like, oh well, we're just going to bring in a new person now, and tell you about their sad origin story or
yeah.
whatever, and have a little adventure and go on. I i like these later stories, the stories that comics really uh that really popularized comics, because most of the time when you're reading a comic, there's not some new character that was introduced that's going to be epic. Usually it's some weird side character that you know is going to die in a couple of things,
Yeah.
and they're just in there because they're a baddie that's there for a little while, and they get introduced and then poop, they're gone.
Like you were just you were the barb.
Yeah, they're basically like a bunch of little barbs that kind of come in and out, and you're like, but the real thing that hooks the readers is these overarching stories about life.
Yeah,
And I think that we finally with the Spider-Man franchise also, we're starting to get into these stories about life, and
more relatable characters, I think.
yeah, and stories that are accessible to kids.
Yeah,
Kids and teens. And I think that was the brilliance of what George Lucas did with the Indiana Jones and the Star Wars franchise, right? It's directed toward kids who are looking for moral structure, but their moral framework is much simpler than an adult's would be. And so
yeah.
they're looking for like big picture guidance, right? And that sort of thing is cool and helpful. And like, I mean, personally for me, Star Wars, I must watch it 50 or 100 times. Once I got a VHS recording of it off of HBO at some point. Sorry, HBO.
Ooh, you broke the law.
Breaking the law, breaking the law.
Who
But at this
didn't do
point, I
that?
think I've spent a lot. I think I've covered the expenses. You're welcome, HBO. I do subscribe. Thank you for finally making that possible. I'm not advertising for HBO. Nobody paid for this.
And he's not advertising piracy, by the way, either.
No, 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 no. Probably not. Like, yeah, piracy was bad, but I gotta say, like, piracy was almost the only way you could get some stuff back in the 80s, because they were
Exactly.
doing such a bad job of distribution. It was just awful.
I
But
remember that. Yeah.
we have to move it
Anyway,
along because we've got a lot to
we have a
discuss,
lot to
and
talk.
we haven't even gotten to the strangest thing of all.
No, no. So, are we talking about the third eye, dude? The third eye? Are we gonna talk about the third eye,
Oh, can
Doctor
we talk about
Strange?
the third eye?
Dude,
Hey, at least it wasn't a. All right. So, have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once?
not yet. I
Okay.
have
So
to.
I'll refrain. I'll refrain. But the third eye was an awesome touch. I loved it. And here's my question: is the tear duct on the left or the right, or are there two tear ducts? And I think my answer is there are no tear ducts. And if there are no tear ducts, how does it stay lubricated? And how
What?
does he like how many like when he goes to
Tear
the
duct?
optometrist, like what is that like?
Well, I know from my own experience, having my mom and a lot of people in my family do, believe in metaphysics and crystals and all that stuff. The third eye is like the all-knowing, all-seeing, powerful, giving you that that thing that power. So when I saw it, I'm like, oh, he's actually higher than Wong. He's actually higher than Wong. But then I'm like, no, because if that was true, then he'd be over at Kmart Taj, and Wong wouldn't be there, you know. But I loved it. I loved the special effects. I freaking loved the music fight scene between the third eye
Oh, the music
Strange
fight
and the regular
scene.
Strange
That was
as a
good.
magician. Dude, that was so that scene. I love that scene. I could watch that scene forever. Um, but I have to tell you before we move on, there was one line in that movie that made me smile, and it was towards the end. where Doctor Strange and Wong are walking through the students who are practicing,
Mm.
and they're looking at America Chavez, the one
Yeah.
who they were saving,
Yeah.
and Strange says something along the lines of how America will like do great at camouflage and she's going to prosper. And Wong responds, she needs to learn how to be patient. Reminds me of someone I know and knew who was here. And Strange just smiles. I loved that freaking line because I, I like it was kind of like, you know, Red and the other coaches talking about like me, and they're like, well, she needs to learn how to be patient in the water. She needs to know not to rush, and I'm just like, that just made me smile. I'm just like, oh, I can relate.
Yeah. Yeah.
so so yeah. So so was this a yay or nay for you?
Oh, definite yay. Definite.
So we're paddling with this. Okay, awesome.
Absolutely.
So now that we're leaving the multiverse and multi-dimension of Doctor Strange, can we delve back into the Upside Down? Can we?
Yeah. I love it. I love this
That's
show so
right.
much.
That's right. Stranger Things Chapter 4. Oh my God! It hit Netflix.
First
Teased
half.
everybody. Yeah,
First
the first
half.
half of 4 teased everybody for what, years? Maybe a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And it did not disappoint. Harlan, I am so ready to talk about this because we have not uttered these words, the series for a long time. Oh my God. So I'm going to let you go first. I am so going to let you go first.
So, oh my, it's been a while for me because remember you watched this a little bit more recently than I did. So
Yeah.
I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and I love I love every time I see that title screen come up, and like I don't think my wife likes it as much as I do, but I love that Stephen King like crawl that they do at the beginning, and the noise and the the 80s, and it gets you in the
Oh,
mood, and then from there they start digging in to like the mood of the whole 80s horror vibe and everything. Like I like going back to that stuff and going and trying to kind of imagine what what those times would have been like if we actually had decent CGI. Because there was some great horror that came out back then, and they tried so very, very hard. And like, I, I love the fact that they use a lot of those learnings from that time and then stack on top of it. And and I love that they are so invested in these kids' lives. Like you really do feel like you're growing up with them and you're experiencing these awful events with them, but they're kids and they're resilient, right? And so they're trying to do what's right and nobody will believe them, and they've accepted this. And so they're still trying to fight for the world around them and for each other. And I just feel like there's so many masterful touches in this piece, and I mean, there's almost too much to talk about. Like for me, I loved the anchoring of the music to hold. Um, I forget the character's name. The one who, and maybe I shouldn't even say. So one of the characters uses music to anchor herself back into our reality.
so that was Max.
Max, yeah.
Yes.
And like that whole thing is sort of like a chills inducing moment
Yes.
when they finally figure it out and make it work. And I'm like, oh, this is great. This is what horror and this is what like uh good good action thriller things are about. People overcoming their fears, people running through falling rocks and trees and debris, and people like climbing up ropes to holes in the ceiling where they fall onto the floor in the other side. That's what it's all about for me.
Oh my god. So, you know, kudos to Strange Things for making your comeback awesome. Like, you teased us, you know, it was kind of like, "Ugh, they're never going to put it out. They're never going to put it out." And then they freaking put it out, and it's fucking phenomenal. It is. So, you know, one of my pet peeves is series or movies not bringing back main characters.
Yes.
That is one of my pet peeves. I'm sorry. I don't like it, you know. But when we last saw Hopper died, like we were like, I was like, Hopper's dead. Everything's gonna go to shit, right? They fucking brought him back. They brought him back. They brought Sam Owens back, Paul Reiser's character. They brought Papa Dr. Brenner back, which I was totally not ready for. But they brought everybody back. Plus, we get to invest in new characters.
You're so
Like,
bitter. But you didn't expect him to come back. I was like, I wasn't surprised, but I definitely was like, I you're bitter. You're like, they're never gonna bring back my favorite characters.
Yeah, I was so like, they're not gonna bring him back. He can tell you, I was so bitter. I'm just like, now I gotta watch these kids. Now, how am I gonna? What's gonna happen? You know? And they brought him back, and I was just like, yes, they brought him back. I'm happy. Oh, my upside down world is so perfect now.
But they're also delivering on the new, right?
Yes, Argyle. There's new character.
Argyle's my favorite.
Argyle is a wonderful California 80s dude that drives a pizza pizza van, and works at a pizza shop and skates. That's and apparently that was the typical stereotypical 80s, you know, California kid. And then we have Eddie Munson. Hellfire! The Hellfire dude. He's awesome. And it's just and so Hellfire is kind of like the D&D of, you know, you get.
No, they are playing D&D.
They
but
are.
It's a Hellfire is a. I think it's a. It's just their club name. It's just their club name. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
They actually are playing D&D, and I don't know if D&D is paying for this, but they should be.
Free advertising.
I doubt it. They're probably paying.
Yeah. So, of course, I've never played D&D in my life, so I know of it. So I didn't know that there was actual club names. But
there's a lot. Well, I mean, you can make of it what you will. It's basically like acting plus a game.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be a board game. You know, those things that preceded video games.
Not even a board game. You can play the entire thing without a board.
But there was a board. They had a board, I think.
Yeah, but you don't need one.
Oh, you don't need one.
No, you actually don't. The reason why people use boards is because there are certain elements that happen. Sometimes when you have fights and things like that, you need to know where your characters physically are located so that you can go, oh, you're close enough to attack or you're not close enough to attack. And so distances sometimes are important. So sometimes you will have a board. Sometimes you will have a visual map that you show people. I was a dungeon master for like 5 seconds, so I used to draw some stuff out.
Dirty. That sounds so dirty.
A dungeon master. It does sound dirty. In retrospect, it does sound dirty. Oh my gosh.
But
I'm happy with that.
But you're happy.
I'm fine with that, yes.
You've come out a great human being.
Why, thank you.
So, besides the two new characters, there's a new supernatural demon character, Vecna. Now,
Vecna.
Vecna has the ability to walk between worlds and kill people,
Hmm?
which is kind of cool and kind of not. And like you touched upon, the only way to survive a spell by coming back to your reality is with music. Okay? Now, this is where we have to give a belated congratulations to Kate Bush for having her first top 10 hit with her 1985, so US top 10 hit with her 1985 song Running Up That Hill, which is the song that Max got out of with
Uh,
with Vecna.
Wait, is that true? Is that her
Yes,
first top 10 hit ever?
US top 10 US hit ever.
I didn't know that. I'm so glad I'm happy for Kate Bush. Congratulations.
Yay, Kate Bush!
Well done, well deserved. I've liked that song for a long time, but it was never really like it was never really on my playlist, but
It's now
like
on your playlist.
it's not. But I appreciate it every time I see Max listening to it. So
Yeah.
there are some
So
songs that work great in a certain media, right? There are some songs that I love in the story. Like
mhm.
one of the songs that works really well in the story is oh, what's the so in Born Identity, and I know you hate Born Identity, but at the end of Born Identity, they always play that Moby song. Do
Oh
do 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 do. I don't even know how to do it, but that Moby song works so well at the end of all the Bourne movies. And I don't even think it was written for them, but every time I hear it come on, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna chill in the theater and listen to this whole song. It just makes me happy. So
yeah.
yeah, Kate Bush's song is like that. Every time I hear it, I'm like, ooh, I
It's
feel the
the
tingles.
tingles.
You feel the power, right? You feel the power in that song.
And so that just goes to show how much of music plays into this soundtrack, especially with Stranger Things being in the 80s with all the different styles of music that was going on. You know, you have Lucas who is now a basketball star and he's listening to rap and it's so different and I love it. But so getting back to the character of Vecna, we learn that Hawkins was cursed before Elle even got on the scene. We would learn that Hawkins was cursed. And it's because
Maybe it's not just Hawkins.
maybe it isn't, but the dude was in Hawkins, this kid who had supernatural human, powers as a human boy. He learned that he wanted to free people and let them think for themselves, which kind of goes back to the AI thing.
Hmm.
And he kills his mom and he kills his sister and he makes his father, who is played by none other than the 80s, 90s horror legend, Robert England. If you don't know who that is, that's Freddy Krueger, by the way. Nightmare on Elm Street.
When
Don't
I
watch
saw
it.
his name come up, I was so happy. So happy. I didn't even recognize him in that character because he was only I mean he was heavily made up. I mean Robert Englund is almost always heavily made up, so it's hard to even remember what he looks like. I've seen him do stuff like just interviews and stuff,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen him recently. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't seen him for like 10 years do an interview.
Yeah.
I love him though. Oh my gosh, he's
It was.
so funny. He
Oh my God.
brings the comedy to horror.
I was. I was like you when I saw that name. I'm just like, it's gonna be a great
Yeah,
episode.
right?
so So he kind of makes his father go insane and makes people believe that it was him who killed the family. And
I love
then
that.
after Brett,
I
Yeah.
love that. He's just like, oh, I'm just pretending, or not just pretend. He's like literally like going, oh yeah, this is your fault. This is your fault.
Yeah. This is what I did, and you have to deal with it. So he actually is taken in by Dr. Brenner, and who he takes his blood. So Brenner takes the blood from the kid, and he starts creating children. So this boy
Oh, is
becomes
that really
known
how he
as,
was doing it? He's taking the
yes,
blood?
yes,
I didn't get that. Did
and
I miss that
and
somehow?
so yeah, so he took a vial of his blood, then he would um take the pregnant people that he found and inject the blood into the babies or something like that. It was, they
Oh,
didn't really tell how the process was,
yeah.
but
Okay.
they one said that he took his blood, and so he now is known as One. He doesn't have a name. So when Elle was born, he befriended her, and then he decides that he's gonna go be he went rogue and now is a demon in the upside down and killing people, and that's how Elle gets back to pulled in, and she goes under this hypnosis where she figures out how to get her powers back because she doesn't have her powers, and she has to kill One. And you don't know Vecna is One until the very end where he's back in the upside down and you see the tattoo.
Well, I kind of did. I think I knew, and I think the reason why I knew is because you told me.
Spoiler alert. And I didn't know that you didn't finish watching it,
It
okay?
was like 2 days in. It was 2 days in there. I'm not as fast. I'm not as fast. No, no, it was
Yeah,
okay. It was okay because I already was wondering like, all right, so Vecna seems human, whereas like, the big bads in the other one was that big old like thing with three legs like
yeah,
towering. It was obviously not a person. Like I was trying to figure out who this guy was. It
yeah,
made sense that it was him. What actually was surprising to me was that was when that boy in the house, one as a young boy, was the one who was doing everything. That was surprising to me. And yeah, no, you didn't spoil that for me, but I definitely, I was like, oh, right.
But you said you kind of figured it out because he was
I did.
talking about himself in the third
He was
person.
talking about himself in the third person when he was talking to Al. He's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, I know somebody that you're like," and I'm like, "Well, obviously you're talking about yourself, dude." And at some point, I was like, "Is he even there?" I was like, because I was checking to see, all right, are other people interacting with him, or is L the only one interacting with him? Because I thought maybe he was a projection. Like I wasn't sure he was actually a human first. I was
mm,
not sure whether he was like a projection of Vecna into the world that only L could see. My mind goes all kinds of different places. So there's more possibilities in here than one. But I knew that there was a link between him and Vecna. So
yeah.
that was not a question.
So yeah, I could see how that was that could you could see that because I was kind of confused too, but I was like, but no, because she's in the up, she's in her, she went back because Brendan told her she has to find her powers, and this was the only way to find her powers, and it was like, and I, like you, I was like looking around, but everybody seemed to interact because it was like they were just repeating the same thing over and over. So, and you got to remember that when she regresses, she's looking at herself when she was a little kid, not as she was now, but she had to act like she was a kid, not now. It was weird. Um, and so, she destroys him, and then, Nancy and Steve, the babysitter, Steve Harrington, the babysitter,
The
uh,
babysitter.
yeah, and forget the other girl's name, um, but and Eddie, they all, Steve and Eddie and the other girl, they get out of the upside down. Nancy's stuck in the upside down, which I find hilarious because Vecna gets a hold of her in that last scene, and we see a split second of Barb. A split second, and Barb's not looking so good.
Yeah. I hate to break it to you, Naya. I think Barb's dead.
No.
I think Barb's dead.
Oh.
She may be dead.
I was
Because
wanting her
that
to
was
get up.
not, she did not look healthy.
I wanted her to get up like Max did with with the brother of Max did, in her dream, be like, "You did this. It's your fault."
I
I was
kind of
wanting
wanted her
that,
to do that too. Maybe she will. I
but
don't know.
she was like,
Is the actor, I mean, did she get a line? She did not, right? She was just
well,
there.
she
She
got a
didn't get a line.
couple of, she still, well, she was pretty Skeletor as I remember her that last scene.
Wait, are you sure? I might
I
need to go back. I feel like there was maybe a voiceover is like you betrayed me or something like that.
We got to see that scene again, but she was not looking hot. She was not looking hot at all. She was
Oh yeah, it
looking
might have
pretty much
been
creepy.
Vecna doing the
Yeah,
voiceover because there
yeah,
was definitely something said when all the blood started to pile into the pool.
yeah, yeah. I just thought, I was like, oh, she's back in the pool. So,
All right,
so
so I guess the question
yeah.
is, with all the blood and the gore and the pools and the lapping of blood on the edges of the pools, we could paddle that, right?
Do you really want to paddle in human blood?
Well, given the
Your
alternative, all right.
paddle will
So
get.
so you're in a boat. You're in
Your,
a giant like lake of human blood. Your choice is, and you have a paddle. Let's. Your choice is to paddle through it or stay where you are. What do you choose?
can I see the shoreline from where I?
You've
Or am
got
I
your
just
Garmin.
floating?
You've got your Garmin.
My Garmin just tells me how far I went. Doesn't tell me where the shoreline is.
Oh, the new ones have maps, Nah. The new ones have
Oh, good,
maps.
good. All right. So if I have my Garmin, and are you in the boat with me? Are you paddling with me?
This is a
Are you
pool
with
of
me?
blood. I don't want to be there.
You're in another boat next to me, saying, "What the hell are we doing?"
What the hell are we doing? I feel like it's more appropriate in
Yeah.
OC ones.
Um. Well, the first thing I'd be like, damn, my paddle is gonna get like all like gross, but I have to paddle this. So I would probably be like, okay, well, let's see how light we can make this boat float in an ocean full of blood.
Okay. All right.
We're
I'd say
paddling
giving
it,
up is not
and
an
then I'm gonna
option.
think, I'm like,
Just like when you're on the ocean, giving up is not
no,
an
but
option.
you have, yeah, no, you can't do that. But I would be like in my mind, I'd be like, when I get back to shore, this is gonna be a bitch to clean.
Yeah. Getting that out of the old paddle pants is not going to be easy.
So, yeah, I think paddling insight. So your question is yes, we paddle on, no matter how gross it is. We've been in grosser stuff than that. So so for the insights here, kids, for our viewing public here, um, the paddling insights that we have talked about that I want to put forth with all of these different things is number one, technology. The speed coaches, heart monitors, Garmin, Stravas, they are all well and good in providing data, but they don't necessarily will help you in the physical demands of paddling, right? They can't make you feel the water better. They can't help you and tell you to sit up or engage your core, make the boat lighter, all this stuff. But they do provide data. As paddlers, Harlan, as paddlers,
Hmm.
why are we so obsessed with getting the data? Does it hurt us or help us?
Oh, I think you enter into a realm of analysis paralysis when you start worrying about data too much. Uh, for me, I mean, I do have a speed coach, and I was told by our Mika, who's our OC6 coach. She's like, you really should get a watch. And I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I
Yeah.
probably should, because I'm supposed to be steering, right? And like
Yeah.
ideally I would like to do that really cool run from Newport to Catalina, and that's on open ocean, right? And so having a map or GPS would help me obviously stay, like, not paddle in circles. To some extent you can use the
Yeah.
sun for it, right?
Yes.
But like I feel like there is this danger when you get any sort of technology, because I did analysis so much in banking, and I recognize, as
Mhm.
an analyst, once you've done it for a couple of years, you start to get a very strong sense that more data does not necessarily lead to better decision making or better performance.
Mm.
Sometimes I would say most of the time, it's the most basic data, the data that's the easiest for people to understand and explain,
Mhm.
that really makes your point best.
I mean, for me, speed coaches, I actually every time I go in the OC6, I take the speed coach in whatever boat I'm in. I hit the start. I go home. I send all the data to Mika, and I tell her who is in what, who was in the boat. So I think as a coach, it's great for figuring out what crews, who in the boat should be in the boat to make the best crews. I think that's the helpful point. But any other reason, I I don't like it. Like I hardly bring it on my OC1. I use my watch because it tells me my heart rate and how far I've gone, and it already breaks down the data for me. It does the same thing, but it's smaller. So, yay or nay on technology? Yes, no.
I'd say a qualified yes. Technology is good, especially if you're competing. But I
Okay.
would say that if you're trying to better yourself, technology may be problematic for you, more problematic than not.
All
So,
right.
yeah, like if you're trying to,
So
yeah, I think we're both skeptical.
yeah. Yeah, so we're yes and no. So
Yes and no.
that's good. All right. So dealing with Doctor Strange,
Hmm.
putting others before yourself. When does the transition happen from it's all about me to I need to do what's good for the team? And as a steersman, this I'm going to pose that to you question as a steersman, not as a paddler, because I could talk about the side of the paddler, but I want you to
Okay.
talk about that side from a steersman point of view.
So when I steer, I would say that it's all about the good of the team. So it's kind of like, so I'm a dad, right? So I have kids, and and as I was as I was relearning to drive with children, because I had to sort of teach myself to calm down and to drive in a more responsible fashion, I will admit, when I was driving with children, I feel like learning to paddle as a steers person on a OC6 is very much like learning to paddle as a parent, because all of a sudden you're conscious, much more conscious of all the traffic that's going on around you, the things that might be problematic in your own boat slash car, right? And your everything from
Yeah.
my mood during the day to how I check the boat before we go out. And I don't like, yeah, Mika took me aside at one point and she's like, so now that you're a steersman, it's your responsibility to make sure that they're, PFDs in the boat, that the rigging is done, that the boat is safe. Like, you have to check, and I've taken that to heart, right? But it's not something I thought about before. Like, when I was just paddling, I never I never really considered that, and I think it's, I don't know if everybody does it, but I always go up to my boat beforehand, and I try to inspect everything as much as I can. I don't trust other people saying, "Oh yeah, it's ready." And I always use that as a moment to remind myself that when I'm back there, the things I'm doing have to be for my own development, but that development is for the benefit of the team. And so it is all about me, right? So when I'm paddling, when I take a stroke, it's about me, it's my balance, it's my whatever, right? When I poke, it's about, am I getting the poking is like a
Mm-hmm.
particular kind of steering. So when I jam the steering blade into the water and I start turning that boat, it's about me poking at the right angle and whatever, right? Velocity and but at the end of the day, it's really about, is everything good for the paddlers who are in my boat? And if you're a steers person and and that's not at the forefront of your mind, I question like whether you belong in that seat, because I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
trust someone who didn't have the safety and um, the safety of the other people in the boat as their sort of main priority, and sort of secondarily just the enjoyment, right? Your steers person can
Yeah.
make an enjoyable cruise or an awful one.
Or an awful one.
An
Yeah.
awful one.
Yeah.
I'm trying, and I'm just learning right now, obviously, right? But I can already
Oh
tell
yeah.
that sometimes I'm not doing a good job, and it's not. It's important to me that people view me as competent. So yeah, for me, it's all about the good of the team. But um,
Yeah.
how do you
No,
think
and I
about that?
and um so for me as a paddler, you're always like, oh, like it's a different transition because once I get out of, OC1 racing,
Hmm.
I still have that mentality. I'm in this boat. This is my seat. This is da da da. I so as a paddler, you need to take that ego out, and I'm learning how to do that. It's very hard because you know as well as I do, we've gotten in some boats and there are some really big, heavy personalities. So,
Yeah.
and very strong personalities. So, but it has to be the good of the team. It can't just be you because you are not pulling the boat by yourself. For me, if I know I have a competent, serious person, and I've been in the boat with you, and you're doing a wonderful job. If
Thank
I
you.
know I have a confident and a competent, serious person, I don't worry about myself. I don't worry about the crew. I just worry that we're all in time. That's it.
Hmm.
And my job to provide the power. So it's all about the good of the team. So we're saying it's for the good of the team. So yeah, so we're getting to the home stretch here. So
Yeah, and
we're gonna make this fast.
I think that's one of the great I think that's one of the great messages of the Marvel universe as a
Yes.
franchise. And it's an overarching theme, right? That's the idea of the
Mm,
Avengers. They are more powerful as a group. And
yeah.
even though they have their own individual stories, it's always this idea of eventually when they come together, they can be more
Yeah.
than the sum of their parts. And I love that their counterpoint a lot of times are these sort of singular powerful people like Thanos. He does
Mm,
have people who work with him, but a lot of times you can kind of tell they're not really in the same boat. They're not paddling
yeah.
alongside, and then you've got Scarlet Witch, who basically is doing stuff on her own. I think it's one of the overarching themes of a lot of these Marvel films. It's this
Yeah.
idea of uh, can a group of weaker but determined people overcome a very powerful individual?
And I wouldn't say weaker. I would say, because weaker implies that they are not as strong. Because I would say, I would just get rid of the word weaker. I would say a group of individuals who have their own strengths.
Hmm.
Because when you say weaker or dumb or stupid, it implies something that is not there. Like I could be weak-minded, but still be strong physically.
Well,
So yeah.
I guess I'm thinking of it in terms of this idea that if you pitted one on one anyone
Oh yeah,
against some of these big bads like a Thanos with the Infinity
yeah.
Stones, right? It's
Oh, they would
really
never
not a
win.
contest.
No.
In until you get to some of the more higher powered players like Captain Marvel or a Doctor Strange kind of person.
Yeah,
Um,
that level. Oh, I see what you're saying.
that's
So
what
it's
I'm
like
saying.
it's
Where
like
they have to bring together a bunch of folks who may not be at the same power level. I'm
mhm,
not saying they're not strong. I'm just saying that they need to combine their strengths, and it's difficult to combine strengths, right?
exactly. We know.
Like learning to work as a team is hard, and
Oh,
I guess that's
that's
it.
that's your point, right there. I like that. Yes, learning and coming together as a team is hard. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is very hard. You got to deal with personalities and little comments, and yeah, it's like, dude, just paddle. I don't even want to hear you just paddle. Let's just paddle. So yeah,
But you've also
totally,
got to learn to deal with those things when they happen, right? You've got to accept and move on
and
and
hold your tongue,
apologize and hold your tongue and
and which I am so not good at.
you're
So,
improving, Naya. You're improving. I
oh,
saw
thank you.
you. You have a huge heart.
I have inside this cold exterior. Yes,
Yeah.
there is a warm heart somewhere down in the cockles.
It's it's near your feet.
It's near my
It's
feet,
near your feet.
covered with fat. I can say this about myself. So let's dive into paddling aspects or paddling insights for Stranger Things. So, Harlan,
Mm,
we have had many talks, you and I, uh, about being brought into a very welcome group of people at Akunakoa. We've
hmm
discussed this privately. We've discussed this in public, openly around people. And you and I are not used to people being so welcoming, heartfelt, so giving, right?
Yeah.
So we're kind of in our own little upside down world if you think about it. Um, so my question to you is, do you think this is a cultural thing, paddling or otherwise? Because as you pointed out, I'm going to make, you pointed this out. We
Yeah,
are
I'll take the
Gen
blame.
Xers, 1960, yeah, 1965 to 1980.
Yeah.
So, do we blame the baby boomers or the boomers? Do we blame the boomers from 1946 to 64? Or do we blame the millennials, the Gen Y, the 1980 to 2000s, and the new silent generation or Gen Z 2000s after us? Like who do we blame? Like, is there anybody to blame, or are we just not used to it? Is this cultural? Is this a new
Like why
thing that
could
we're supposed to be going through? I don't know.
yeah, I guess why is it that it's so hard
Yeah.
for us to accept that some people are just nice and welcoming and giving? I mean, I mean, Akuna Koa really does live this sort of feeling of aloha that I don't really encounter in in a lot of the world around me. I think so. To answer your question, I blame the baby boomers because I blame the baby boomers for everything.
Sorry, boomers.
Sorry,
Sorry,
boomers.
he blames you.
I do blame you. I can explain why. There's a whole book. It's hilarious and true about why the baby boomers have kind of screwed everybody else over. I'm not going to go deep into that right now, but let's just let
No,
it be known that I am not happy.
he's not happy with you.
But this idea of a community that really is open and welcoming is something that I think is important, and I mean I look for, and I hope I try to build, and hopefully can be a bit of a part of. But I'm a very cynical person.
No, not you.
So I'm a very cynical and not isolated, introverted kind of person, and so it's
Yes.
not easy for me to participate in that kind of activity, right? So like your parties, I just don't want to go, and I don't. That's not because I'm judging you. I don't think it's bad. Like none of that. It's hard for me to go to the parties, right? There's like for me, and I was talking to my wife about this. For me to do something with somebody, it's not something where I just like call someone up and go, let's hang out. Like that's hard for me. Instead, it's really good for me to engage in like a volunteer activity or a work activity or something like that. That's how I develop connections. And so, like, I really need to be productive with people to have this sort of feeling of to give myself permission to go do social activities. So it's a lot it, and I don't know if that's like where I grew up, how I grew up. I don't know where I get this necessarily. Is it genetic?
I just think I think it's our age group, dude. I really
Do
do.
you think it's our age group? I
I
mean,
really believe I believe it. But then you have people like Red, who is in our age group too. That and he's just they're just so welcoming and so caring. I don't know. Maybe it's the two coasts. I don't know. Let's just blame something. Let's just blame the boomers. We'll just
yeah,
blame
I'm gonna
the
blame the boomers.
boomers.
I because definitely they're the problem.
So
I
yeah,
like
I'm in that.
do you have that same feeling where it's easier for you to like do activities than it is for you to just like do a party or like a
So
hangout? Like I find those very uncomfortable.
oh, I know. I took photographic proof to show your wife that you were making friends.
You did. She had to do this. We went
I
to a
had to. I
party.
had
I spoke to people. Naya documented this activity for us. Thank you, Naya.
to
We
because
basically made it into a
June.
work activity.
Yes, because June said we had to go make friends. Well, she said he had to
I
go
had
make
to go
friends,
make
not
friends.
me.
Yes.
But I was with him, so we were making friends together. Um, I didn't get invited to a lot of parties, so the parties that I go to are usually with people that I really feel comfortable with, and I usually just eat there. Now, being Polynesian, being Samoan, I am. I don't know if I'm supposed to have this thing already. This welcoming. Hey, how you doing? Come in, loving. I don't know. I don't know where it is. Apparently, I didn't get the memo. Nobody told me that I needed to have it. My Polynesian card, y'all can pull it if you want. I'll sign another application and try to get it back. I don't know. but
Do you have to do
but
a driving test for that?
I, I don't know. I somebody tell me where this thing
Behind the
is, and
wheel?
I and yeah, somewhere. But it's just it's it's very awkward and uncomfortable for me. But I know it's something that is, first of all, it's cultural, but to the Polynesian culture. But I'm finding it's cultural for the paddling community as well, especially in
Yeah, it
OC.
is. Yeah, there's
Dragon
so
boat.
many.
Dragon boat is no. We don't have that. We're just like, you paddle, come with us. We're gonna go fast. Okay. You sit your ass down, eat some food, get some rest, hydrate. We're gonna go back out there. We're gonna go back out there, and you're gonna bust your ass, and then come back in and sit down, and then we're done for the day. All right, cool. Oh, we have a team dinner, but you don't have to really sit next to people that you don't know. You can sit into your little groups. You know, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that. So it's not to say that dragon boating's bad or one better than the other, but I'm just not
It's
used to
different.
it.
It's different.
Yeah.
I think I
So
lack trust. Like anytime someone comes to me and says, nice things, or like I used to have a horrible problem, and it came out at work. It was where it was the worst. People would
oh,
say thank you to me for things because I had like helped them with something, and I literally didn't know what to say. Right, like the whole "you're welcome" part. Like I, I didn't.
like,
I was like, why are you thanking me? Do you want something from me? Like
it,
like I did not trust people. Like occasionally people would be like, "Oh, Harlan, you did this thing." Like they might like give me credit for something in a open meeting,
mm,
and I would be like, "Why are you mentioning this right now? I was just doing my job." Right? And my response eventually, like someone, I don't even remember, maybe I learned it on the internet. I don't know. At
you
some
found it. You
point
googled
someone was
it.
like, the proper response to when someone says thank you is to say you're welcome. And I was like, oh, I guess that, yeah, I remember that from kindergarten. Someone mentioned that to me at some point. I
In your
forgot.
life.
And so I actually developed a phrase that I would use, and because I didn't want to say you're welcome all the time, and I said I'm happy to help. And
There you go.
I really like being able to say that, because it does make me happy to help people, right? And
Yeah.
it's something that I enjoy doing. And two reasons why I say it, because I want people to believe me, and I want to remind myself that this is the reason why I work. This is the reason why I do stuff. I'm happy to help others.
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
So, yeah, my catchphrase to people saying thank you, I was like, no worries, no worries, just short and simple. I'm like, they're like, no, but they like we have this one girl, and so we're gonna, we're getting through this. We got like maybe 20 minutes left. So, uh, there's one girl on the team, her mom, and I love her mom, and she always comes and she's like, Coach Naya, are you mad at me? Coach Naya, can I help with anything? Coach Naya. And I'm like, she's like, here, we got this for you. Like, you know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. You, Zoe's mom.
Yeah, 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 I know. I know.
And we love her. We love her. We love you.
We love
And
you.
but it's just, yeah, it's just like, but she's like, I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, thank you, Coach Dan. Zoe, go say thank you to Coach Dan. I'm like, no, dude, it's just no worries.
It's cool. It's
Yeah,
cool.
it's
It's all
cool.
cool.
It's just cool. No, but thank you. I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, are you all right? It's like it's weird, but I
It's
love
weird.
her.
Yeah,
I
it's
love her.
difficult. It's difficult for us to accept like praise, which is, again, I'm going to blame the boomers.
Boomers.
They're not good at praise.
We're just
Not
gonna have a
really.
sign. Are we
Sorry.
gonna like anything that we don't like? We're gonna blame the boomers on that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
let's the next. I'm gonna give you the next 15, 20 minutes, and you can talk about investing. We were gonna talk about writing or reading the waves, but we could do that another time.
We're
That'll
gonna
be
do that
another
the other
rant.
time.
We'll do
Yeah,
we'll do a rant.
we're
So
gonna we're gonna
invest.
t- we're gonna talk a little bit about something that's close to my heart these days, and this is the idea that times are tough out there for investors,
Yeah.
and so whenever we have whenever we bring in these films, right? There's always this idea of like impending doom, right? So a lot of our films that we'll be talking about have impending doom. So even Weird Science, if they had not really like dealt with their issues, there could have been impending doom for the world because at one point she like brings up a nuclear they actually try to make a second one. They try to make a second version of her because they're jerks. And they end up building a nuclear missile in their house
because they forgot the doll.
because they forgot the doll. Um, Doctor Strange, obviously, you know, the entire multiverse could be destroyed. And in Stranger Things, the upside down could take over the right side up or whatever they call our world. There's always this sense of impending doom. And it is a wonderful narrative device. But it's important to remember that it is a narrative device. And while civilizations do come and go, and while humanity does ebb and flow, am I going to make this into a rap? I don't know.
Are you the newest rapper, Harlan? Harlan B.
For the most part, we have to, my belief is that we should be investing for a bright future. We should be investing for a future that I think most people are hoping for, which is something that's better than there is today. And forces of government, forces of industry, cultural forces are all trying to push us toward things like peace and stability and equality and yada yada yada, right? Those things. There is always those people like the jerk over in Russia who's trying to take over Ukraine right now, who are trying to basically use the fact that it's easier to destroy things than create things to fuck with the rest of us. But when you're investing, when times get tough, and it looks like every single news article is about the crap that's happening, inflation, war, yada yada yada, right? And when it looks like your whatever you have in your portfolio is plummeting, you have to remember that if you, unless you must sell for some reason, chances are when all those negative news articles are coming out, when all that bad, when all those stocks are dropping, that's when you can find the best bargains on companies that ordinarily you would kind of look at it and go, wow, that seems so overpriced. Should I buy it? I don't know. Like most of the time when I buy stocks, I worry that like they're too high because most of the stock buying I've been doing for the last 10 years has been in this weird overvalued market. And so you're trying desperately to find a company that's like, it's got a decent valuation and a good business model and you're interested in it and like it meets all these qualifications, it has good leadership, yada yada yada, right? And so you eventually settle on a company, you're like, oh, but it's so expensive. And you're like, well, I'll buy a little or I'll buy some more, or, and you diversify and you just build up holdings, right? Occasionally you will get times when your favorite companies just get spanked by the market. When that happens, you can look at it one of two ways. You can say, wow, maybe that wasn't such a good idea after all. Maybe I was wrong. All these people think it's not worth nearly as much as it used to be worth. Or you can look at that company again as a business and you can say, does this company still do the same things it did before? Does it still have the same plans? Does it still have the same leadership? Does it have the same style? Do the people who work there, are they also as good as they were last year, 2 years ago, when it was really more highly valued than it is today? Is this company just on sale right now? And so, to use a paddling analogy, if a wave rolls under you, sometimes you're just going to miss it. But if you get that paddle in the water and you maintain your balance, right? And you're in the base of that trough, and all of a sudden the back of your boat starts rising, and you've got a couple of decent paddles, that could just the analogy is to like just buying a few shares in that trough, in that little low spot. All of a sudden, if you get a big wave piling up behind you that you may not even see coming, right? It piles up behind you and just yerks you forward. That's what investing is about. It's basically like reading the waves. It's reading the water and trying to figure out, oh, which of these are the good waves to catch. And so that's why reading the waves is such a cool thing for me to do, just to think about what some of these trends are. And we'll pick that up next time. Yeah. So any comments on that, Naya? You're nodding along as I was talking. I like, how does that make you, how does that make you feel?
No, it just goes back to something that you said earlier in the in this cast. You can't stop paddling in the middle. You can't.
Yeah.
When times get tough, when you're on the ocean, let's just take that wonderful little race that I did, Dana Point, with your son, and it was a freaking washing machine. And I am taking out a 10-year-old girl for her first short course OC race, OC1.
Yeah.
Now, I knew I could handle it. I was confident that she could.
Yeah.
But I was scared for her because of the rough waters. And I remember telling her and looking at her, and her eye, like she was excited, but I could see in her eyes that she's like, oh. And I said, whatever you do, do not stop paddling. I said, these waves are big. We're going to ride some wakes. We're probably going to get pushed. But whatever you do, you cannot stop. And I want you to be ahead of me or beside me, not in back of me. Because I can't do anything if you're behind me.
Yeah.
And her little 10-year-old self was staying up. Now, mind you, I had to stop at certain places to let her catch up.
Yeah.
But she did not once stop paddling. I had to stop paddling, but I had to keep my balance for her.
Sure.
So, I mean,
special scenario.
Yeah.
Right.
Special scenario. But me aside, having that 10-year-old girl paddle in that short course, rough waters, and seeing her not stopping and from start to finish, that's what you're talking about. She could have easily given up, and we could have called the chase boat to tow us back in. But why? We were already halfway through the course.
Yeah.
So when you pick a stock, and I think this is where you're going, and I'm just going to put in my own terms. When you pick a stock, and times are like this, I mean, I have this little thing down on my computer. I just see a red line. It's just going down.
Yeah.
Stock is not good today. Stock has not been good for a couple of weeks.
And and I want to say that red line is criminal. That red line, the fact that it's colored red
Yeah.
makes it look like the fact that the value of the stock is going down is a bad thing.
Yeah.
There are, I have so many pet peeves about the way data is provided to people, but a stock being a lower value today than it was, say 5 months ago,
Yeah.
is great if the business is still firing on all cylinders to
Yeah.
anyone who wants to buy. It's not good to say someone who's 70 years old and they're like, I need some money right now so that I can pay for my mortgage payment, right? It's not good for that person, but it depends on your perspective, right? If
Yeah.
you're right now a young person and you're starting to get into the market, you should be absolutely over the moon by the fact that all these old people are freaking out. You should be like, yeah, this is a great time
I-
because you can be like that 10-year-old girl who's out
yeah.
there
Let's
like
just
cutting
enjoy
through these waves. And at the end of it, you've achieved something and you have experience for later on.
Yeah. Like, so for me, I can tell you that a lot of people in my life, they see that red line like, we lost this much money this morning. We're losing this much money. And my response probably isn't the response that people normally get, because people would be freaking out. And I'm like, what do you want me to do about it? I can't go tell the stock people, these companies, hey, you might want to reconsider, this value and da da da. Yeah, I'm like, I take that. I'm like, look, it's gonna go up, it's gonna go down. When times are great, yeah, you're flying on that wave and you're just riding that wave in. When times are down, when times are tough, when you're in rough waters, hey, you still got to paddle on, right?
You
You
still
still
got to paddle on.
you can't hoolie,
Nope.
because
Nope.
what happens if you hoolie? You're gonna get right back up
You're going to get right
and
back
paddle
up and
on.
you're going to get right back in that boat. You can
Exactly.
wait for it to get calm, but it could take a long time to get to shore if you do.
You might be waiting a while, and I mean like years, because
Yeah.
you're gonna be start looking like Barb.
Okay, everybody. So that was today's show. Thanks for watching. Please hit our like and subscribe. We love it when we get our, even though it's uncomfortable for us, we do love it when you celebrate our work. So,
Yeah.
Naya, how can people connect with us?
They can always email us at writingthewake2, that's writing the wake with the number 2, at gmail.com. Follow us both on Instagram or Facebook at Writing the Wake, one word, or at the website, woohoo, yeah, writingthewake.show. We
Yeah, and
put
I've put more episodes out there on writingthewake.show. They're linked. I mean, all the episodes, of course, are available on YouTube in the Writing the Wake subchannel. And you can tune in soon for episode 15. And we have no idea what we're going to do for that, but it's coming up.
I'm calling
Um,
the law of surprise. That's just going to be my new thing. Law of surprise.
And we are also going to be taking a little bit of a break. Some of our shows may be coming out a little bit more with a little bit more space in between because we've got some travel coming up and we've got races coming up. So travel, races for travel, and I am going to be doing a internship program for a bunch of high school teens for basically the next month and a half, starting next week, I guess it is. And we're going to be doing finance and investing in that. So I'm going to be pretty busy, but I just wanted to let you all know that we love you and we're going to be back here as soon as and as often as we possibly can.
Yes, we're not leaving you. You can't get rid of us that
Can't
easily.
get rid of us that easily. So
But
until
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
so until next time, hug the hoolie, keep paddling, and we'll see you on the land or in the water. Peace.